Hi guys, it's Brittany here. Welcome to my channel. This is exciting. You are here with me in what will one day be a very beautifully decorated filming, meditation, and workout room. This is the start of Spoonful of Spirit, and I created this channel because I want to create a little corner of the internet where people can calm down, reorient themselves. We can talk about things and normalize our feelings, because I don't know about you, but when I look out at the world, I see so many anxious, nervous people trying to just make their way through it and wondering if they're crazy and if their depression is not normal and if their anxiety is not normal. And it's just a lot. And we're all in our heads trying to make our way through this, sometimes without even talking about what we're actually going through. And go figure, my first video on this channel is going to be all about anxiety. I hate it, but I live with it every day, so I learn to overcome it. Put that on Spotify. Something that is important to take away from this story and how I operate as a person is that I don't know if there's a God, don't know, but I genuinely believe that there is something, whether it's our minds or quantum physics, something putting experiences and people and places and obstacles in our way to help us get to a better, more genuine version of ourselves. And so whenever I talk about my life experiences, and we gonna talk about some life experiences on this channel, but whenever I talk about that, it's just so important for me to convey that I look for signs and being open to the signals that I call it the universe, Ewa, the universe, Pachamama, like being open to the signals that are sent to you. Let me just tell you that it has been incredible through my anxiety journey to let the universe like be a partner and unfold and just reveal her magic to me. This sounds like a real person because it is to me. The universe is absolutely a real person. It's like the girlfriend you didn't know you needed. Anxiety is something that is just so important for me to put words to, because I lived with it my entire life, my entire conscious life, without knowing how to describe it, what I was feeling, or the fact that it was truly a chemical imbalance within my brain. I want to talk about how I discovered anxiety and that I had it, how I identified my triggers and the scenarios and the people and the personalities that put me in a very anxious state. And for me, ultimately, something that was insanely helpful, besides leaving my toxic job, was medicine. And for some of you, medicine may not be the way, you may not even need it, but I needed the medicine. Big help. And last, but probably most important, I want to talk about the shame that came with having these feelings, these thoughts, these experiences, and just where anxiety stems from and what it came from for me to help any of you going through this. Because once you can speak to it and once you can get your body and your mind in a better place, you can absolutely live with it and manage it. So let's get into it, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the first hurdle to identifying that you have anxiety. And that hurdle, truly, probably the biggest obstacle for me was acknowledging, discovering that I had anxiety. Because when this has been your MO, your state of being, the way in which you've operated for most of your conscious life, you don't think that, oh, that may have a name or a clinical significance. And it might be unusual, saying, I have this condition. I live with this every day. Acknowledging that and then working from that is huge. It's huge because you don't lose yourself in your mind and your own thoughts as much. You're acknowledging, okay, there's something that's a little off that a lot of other people do not have to deal with. Do I want to learn how to live in a happier, healthier way with less of that? Yeah. Let me tell you how it came up or manifested for me. I am a product manager in the technology industry, and I'm responsible for making sure products are successful, for building what our customers need, etc. Very highly visible, mentally demanding work that also pushes me to grow as a person and was extremely uncomfortable, coupled with some severe anxiety. Whew. This is leading up to a recipe for disaster. Foreshadowing. So I had been a product manager for several years, and just my way of living was I would have what felt like panic attacks, a racing heart, severe worry that I would be fired, the inability to think straight or strategize or answer questions because I was so terrified of being seen of as not good enough, of being seen as someone who didn't have all the answers, being seen as someone who didn't belong there. I very much thought I was lucky to be here, and that's based off of my own life circumstances. More on that in another video if you guys are interested. But it was just, it came up so much in a professional setting. And then I can look back now and realize I didn't know it then, but it came up every time I tiptoed into starting a relationship with a new person. It was something where, I can laugh now, but I look back and realize, Brittany, it is not normal to lay in bed, hyper aware of the other person's every move and not sleep in a comfortable position because you're afraid you might wake them up. The weird just stuff that I can look back at now and think, Brittany, get comfortable in bed. What are you doing? It showed up so much in work with relationships. It showed up as what's the right thing to say. I was terrified and so uncomfortable and paralyzed at the thought of hurting someone's feelings by breaking up with someone. So usually people broke up with me because they were like, you're not giving me everything, or this isn't working. And I was like, yeah, thank God. Whew, break up with me. It's not working. I had such negative self-talk, really, really hurtful ways of thinking about yourself because of a fear that I would be found out as someone who was just lucky to be here. Somebody had made the wrong decision through all of the interviews that I'd been through in my entire career, and I was a fraud. And that's what led to me discovering that I really had anxiety was in my darkest place in my last job, which was not a good combination of people or practices or culture for me. And I remember being in California back with my family. It was November. And I remember thinking, writing an email to this particular person made me freeze up. I hated thinking about talking to them. I hated thinking about working with them. I felt like they were always judging me, but wouldn't say it. And I just wasn't anywhere near performing at my best because I was an anxious wreck. And I had this epiphany and it clicked where I was like, why am I so terrified of this person? And all of a sudden, I don't know how it came, but it just entered my mind. And the statement was, you're intimidated of this person. You're intimidated of their knowledge. You're intimidated of how they present themselves. And because you don't have a good working relationship or any kind of healthy communication with this person, you are just doing a vicious cycle of awful self-talk over and over and over again. I don't recall how I had the divine influence or the thoughtfulness of what is anxiety? How do you define anxiety? Google, what is anxiety? But in that moment, I just felt called to look it up. And that's what I mean. Like, when you're in an anxious state and you're used to living like that and you're used to negative, awful self-talk, it's crazy that the idea of Googling something does not even enter your mind. But it's true, because you're so negative towards yourself and so afraid of being found out as being less than, or not knowing what you're talking about, or not knowing what you're doing, that the thought of Googling something didn't even enter my mind. And so once I Googled, what does anxiety look like? How do you define it? Oh, did the journey to healing begin. The next thing I want to talk about is, how do you identify what your triggers are once you've recognized, I might be dealing with something like anxiety. So again, I was in this very toxic previous job. Out of a fear-based response, I was like trying to hoard knowledge and trying to learn things at work because I didn't want to be found out by how little I knew about something, which, if you look at that from a healthy perspective instead of an unhealthy one, you are surrounded by people at work who are subject matter experts in other fields, so that you get together, solve the problem, because no one person can understand how everything works. But to be needed and to not be found out, which sounds so silly, I really tried to learn what other people were doing and make decisions without them. And that, fueled by intimidation and fear, totally led to some negative experiences. And a manager that was really wonderful who pulled me aside and said, like, you cannot know everything. And you need to be selfish in your career. If you're unhappy here, you need to go look for something that'll make you feel better. I had a very hard time saying no. This is where something that magically fell in my lap was the Enneagram personality test, which it changed the direction of my life and how I interact with the world. It was intimidation, fear of not knowing enough, thinking I was just lucky to be there. And then you combine that with actually figuring out your personality type. And the Enneagram does it in a really profound way that lets you know, here's what you fear, and here's what you strive for. And here are the kinds of people, circumstances, and other triggers that will set you off in a reactive way. Here's what you need to work on to not react like that. So those were the major things that helped me identify, okay, this is what sets off my anxiety. And I also thought that I wanted desperately to leave product management, because all of these things were happening in the context of, I go to this company, I work as a product manager, I hate work every day. So it was very hard for months after I left the company to separate my role and what I had done from the triggers that came at that previous company. And so after a 6-month break, I did leave my job during the pandemic. Thank God for unemployment. During that break, I realized, after I had time to heal, I did not hate product management at all. I was simply at a place, at a time, doing work that was not right for me. And being able to understand that I had anxiety and see it through that lens was incredibly important. 2 more things I want to get to. The first is talking about shame. This is a Brené Brown moment on this channel. And I carried around so much shame based on not being enough, that anxiety, and again, we're talking about really negative self-talk, a lot of fear, and it just perpetuated it and perpetuated it and perpetuated it. I felt like I was subhuman, not incompetent, but like I was broken, like something was wrong with me that wasn't wrong in other people. Other people wouldn't understand. My partner couldn't understand. I was extremely depressed, crying in my car before going to work almost every day before I was able to get medicine, which is the point I'll get to next. But the shame, you just feel like you're keeping a dirty secret. And as I look back, and medicine and Reiki and really pursuing work and hobbies that totally align with who I am in my heart, as I look at those things, I see that every single person on this planet, every single person on this planet is dealing with something and feeling like they have to hide something in shame. So it comes to all of us, whether it's short-lived or it's something much more chronic. Everybody experiences that. And that's got to be a level setter for all of us. The shame exists for everyone. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about what got me out of that anxiety, and girl, it was meds. I think talking about medicine and that as one way to heal and live with anxiety is hugely important, because people can be scared. You might be scared thinking about medicine. You might be scared thinking about, is it addictive? Look, there are so many ways, I think, for each person to find healing around this. And for me, meditation and exercise weren't cutting it. Like, my daily life was absolutely being interrupted. I was not performing well at work, and I wanted to see what the medicine could do. So I am on a form of generic Lexapro, and I want to share with you what I asked the doctor when I went to visit her for the first time. It was very important to me that I get on something that's non-habit forming, because I have a major fear around that, because my beloved mama, God rest her soul, was totally addicted to prescription pain meds. And seeing the darkest, most painful side of what happens to someone when they experience that, I was like, yeah, if this is habit forming, I'm gonna need something else. The great news is that Lexapro and its generic forms are not. There are a variety of different doses you can start with, and it's an antidepressant. I started with the smallest dose, and here was my experience. I began taking it. She had informed me that between 2 to 4 weeks, I would start to notice a difference and to keep her updated. And what it was I'd like you to imagine your emotions are a valley, and you can have really high highs and be so happy and feel like you could take on the world and you can do whatever you want and you're unstoppable. And then something triggers your anxiety and you are in the lowest of low. You are ashamed that you don't know enough. You are insecure. You feel like you're not worth the space or the air that you breathe, like a really severe back and forth. Someone's impression of you can ruin your day. Someone's negative comment can just, you can ruminate over it for weeks, which I've absolutely been there. And what I noticed was literally right at the 2nd week mark, instead of having these major swings of emotional energy, it really started to level out. And I could still feel incredibly happy for things that I was pursuing around my goals, my values, things that I enjoy. I was less inclined to get sucked in or really feel a negative reaction to something that someone else was expressing. It was like being able to say, okay, that's something that you believe and something that you say that has nothing to do with me. And I could talk about that separation. We can all talk about it for years, but I couldn't physiologically make the separation. Like my body used to be all the time in hyperdrive thinking, oh no, Rick must be having a bad day because of the way he said 2 words in Slack. Like, oh my God, please don't make it worse. How am I going to get him this paper? What am I going to do? Like, deep tunnels into really difficult thought processes and storylines. And so I think that anybody who is experiencing anxiety, talk to your doctor about what recommendations are right for you. I just found that medicine really was a game changer for me. And now I've weaned myself off of it quite a bit. I take it every other day now, but it was the tool that helped me get more grounded in myself, really focus on what my body's saying, how I'm breathing, what's running through my head. And then as I was healing and taking time off from, the horrible place that I was at and rediscovering what I wanted to do, over time I gradually took less because I was becoming more in tune with what really lifted my spirits and made me content, made me feel whole day by day going to work again. Like I said at the start of this video, I want this to be something that is spoken about, and I made this because the suffering in silence for years doesn't have to be a lifestyle, I hope you guys found this helpful, valuable. Leave a comment if you want to see more. Help me build this up, and please subscribe. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon in another video. Bye.